Chainsaw Man episode!
Part 2.
Hello, and welcome to part 2 in a long-ass video look back at Fujimoto's Chainsaw Man so far. This will be probably the most in-depth video of the three. We're looking at volumes 6 through 8, and we'll be covering the Bomb arc and the International Assassins arc. Once again, this video will contain spoilers for everything included in these volumes, and a few of Fujimoto's past works and Chainsaw Man's volume 1 through 5 also. And again, I'll be reading this and going through it as if I'm reading each of these chapters for the first time as they're released. So especially chapters like chapter 63, which is very full of mystery at the time of reading it. Some things are explained later, but when I get to that point, I'm going to be speculating from the perspective of people who read it at that time, and even going through some old posts at that time when it came out, what people were thinking. I just think it's fun to do it this way. One more thing, one more time, if you haven't read these already, I recommend you do so. Some of this stuff is conveyed better visually, obviously, it's a visual medium, but more importantly, a lot of it is shocking. This arc starts to get into the cosmic horror and the really cool turns and twists of Chainsaw Man where it really picks up and goes nuts, so I recommend you read it. I'm hoping to add some nice commentary to both those who have read it and those who haven't, and you'll get some out of it either way, but there's nothing beats the original, so I'd recommend you check that out. And if you're just getting started on this video series, I have one more part of Chainsaw Man, obviously, and I've also got Fire Punch and all of Fujimoto's one-shots. So if you want to catch up on Fire Punch, the one-shots, Chainsaw Man Part 1, and then jump into this video, the links will be in the description below. So where we last left off, we hadn't quite finished Volume 5, which covers chapters 35 through 43. This is because, to me, Chapter 40 feels like the jumping off point to a new part of the story, and I felt like it was a good time to take a break, so we're going to start there. From the beginning until Chapter 40, we had established this world where devils formed from human fear plagued the modern Earth. The Japan Public Safety Devil Hunters is an organization dedicated to defeating dangerous devils and sometimes capturing them to form contracts. But there are tons of freelance devil hunters and tons of other countries' organizations too. This is just Japan's. So we can assume that for a while, public safety hunters had been pretty normal humans, but recently they started to train Division 4, which included devils and fiends among their ranks, including our main character Denji, a unique group to be sure, so much so that their ultimate enemy took notice, the Gun Devil, who sent out assassins to kill Division 4 and break it up. And the main reason they did this was to get Denji's heart, and to get rid of the mysterious leader Makima, maybe? Or to stop them from locating the Gun Devil's body by collecting pieces of it. This attack killed some people, left some others in a pretty bad spot. After a bit of training, our main characters got revenge, and they're now going to go their own ways, and let's catch up with everybody right now. To begin with, Denji, our main dude, he's no longer dead broke and working for the Mafia. He has merged with his pet Pochita, and he's now the Chainsaw Man, a fiend who is half human, half chainsaw devil with unknown potential. Everybody seems to think something's going on with him, and he's going to be this great guy. At first, his goal as a human was just to survive, and then it was to touch boobs, and now it's to kill the Gun Devil and to find love. He just had his first real date at the end of our last video, where he wasn't really sure for a while if he had emotions after becoming a fiend. He felt like he was kind of losing his heart. Fujimoto wrote us chapter 39, showing that works of art can change your relationship with humanity and make you feel complicated, memorable emotions that you can sit with and interpret however you like, regardless of your position in life. And finding purpose, finding love through art, it's a really great chapter. Then to Power, a fan favorite, Denji's roommate and the Blood Devil. She was a chaotic, uncontrollable, human-hating machine, but living with him and Aki had softened her up a bit, and she's beginning to get used to humans and value their company, along with her cat, Meowie. However, in the last mini-arc, she drank a bunch of zombie blood and became too powerful, so Makima took her away at the end of chapter 39 to be drained and weakened for everyone's safety. She is temporarily out of the picture. Speaking of Makima, at first in the beginning of the story she was just sort of a black suit, Denji's boss and his abuser, an older powerful woman taking advantage of his poverty, position, and horniness to use his devil. She finally went on a date with him, and we saw a side of her that could be genuine care for other people, but even so, she is still very scary, even as she softens to Denji. As an aside, some people that have read this have said that her crying on the date was fake and that her note about one movie changing her life was a setup to make Denji vulnerable and kind of break his heart. And I disagree. I totally get that, and I think that makes sense with what we know about Makima, that she's a fake person. And I like to think this moment of vulnerability is real regardless. I just think it's a good chapter, and I want to believe that Makima has that side to her too. Lastly, let's talk about the tragic hero Aki, the undisputed fan favorite. His story is directly tied to our villain from the beginning. The first major appearance of this gun devil was striking his childhood home and missing him by a hair, along with millions of others, but he was there. Now he's lost his mentor and has become the leader of this new Division 4. When the gun devil struck last at the end of the last arc, he'd almost given this pursuit to stop the devil everything he has. His cursed sword has given him 2 years left to live, and his only real power now is to see the future, which is only because the future devil wants to see his apparently horrific death. Okay, let's get into it and begin by wrapping up Volume 5 real quick. So, the next day, Denji's walking along, reflecting on his date with Makima, how if he kills the gun devil, he'll ask Makima to date him for real. Beam is swimming there beside him, just his fin sticking out, hiding under the sidewalk. A girl on the side of the road is asking for donations in exchange for flowers. And Denji's like, "Oh boy, thanks," and grabs the flower and eats it. Suddenly it starts to pour rain on him. Beam jumps up in the air and is like, "Woo! Water from the sky!" And Denji's like, "No, back underground, don't cause a scene, bad." As a reminder, now that power is being drained, quote unquote, Denji's been assigned Beam as his new partner, who is a himbo and Chainsaw Devil fanboy. This kind of buff shark dude that just swims around in the background is never seen, really. Denji's been kind of a dick to Beam so far. Beam is a pretty affectionate dude, and Denji's kind of uncomfortable with guys, as we saw, so he makes Beam stay out of sight, and Beam is cool with it. He respects the Chainsaw Man. This is a great way to basically have Denji on his own for a little side story, because he has to have a partner canonically, but like this partner just stays away, so he can do whatever he wants. So it's raining. Denji rushes into a phone booth to escape the rain, and a moment later a girl rushes in behind him, and they're in there pressed together, and she sees him and starts laughing at him, and then crying. And he's like, "What?" And she's like, "You remind me of a dog I used to have who passed away." Denji doesn't really know how to react, so he vomits the flower up he just ate and is like, "Oh, here you go." And she's like, "Oh, magic trick, thank you." He's sort of stunned, and she's sort of just laughing at him. The rain stops, and says, "Hey, I work part-time at a local cafe, come by sometime, I'll give you a meal," and then she leaves. Naturally, Denji walks there immediately, so by the time she gets in there and puts on her apron and goes out to work, Denji's just like already sat down at the table, and she's clocking in, and she's like, "Oh, hey, you got here before me already." And he's like, "Oh, hey, yeah, I'm just here to give my thank you." She makes her boss bring them both coffee, and they sit down together. The boss is annoyed. She's clearly a half-ass worker and a part-time student. She's touching Denji a lot. She's teasing him, asking him questions. Her name is Reze, and as Denji puts it, she totally likes me. Oh crap. I like people who like me. Help me, Makima. I want to fall for this chick. And Denji does. We see he visits her every day for the next week. They study together. She's in school. So they doodle on her paper, and she makes fun of him for not going to school. And he's like, "Well, maybe it would be more fun. Maybe I would go to school if I could go with you." And she's like, "Alright, let's go." So they decide to go after dark one night. Making Beam just swim beside them for all this is very funny, again. Aki has been partnered up with the Angel Devil in the meantime, another one of the survivors from Division 4. He's very cute and only really wants to eat ice cream. Aki says, "Come on, kid, work with me. I need some big devil kills on my record so I can join the Gun Devil expedition when it comes up. If you don't work, you'll just be killed." Angel's licking his ice cream and is like, "Yeah, I guess I'd rather die than work. That sounds alright." Aki hates this punk. He's still a very strict dude. And he also hates devils in general, but according to Makima, this devil is very powerful and can drain human lifespans to create weapons. Actually, he's the one who created Aki's big nail on his back, so Aki decides they have to get along. Somewhere far away, some disgusting-looking mercenary man is staring into the mirror and down into his sink in the bathroom, and he's contracting with the Typhoon Devil, swirling there in the sink. Typhoon says he'll give this man his power for the Chainsaw Devil's heart. The mercenary says, "Yeah, I've killed hunters before. Usually I go after their heart." It's alluding to him killing Rez, Denji's new love interest. I'm wondering why everyone wants to kill Pochita right now. Is it because he's cute? Is it because he hurt them in the past? He like peed on their leg or something? This man is a friend. I just don't get it. What do you got against Pochita? Maybe they want him as their pet. That's got to be it. Denji and Reze break into the school at night, and Reze is playing teacher. It starts as a fun joke, asking Denji some English and writing things like big ass on the chalkboard, like, hey Denji, can you say this out loud for me? But begins to get serious as she realizes Denji actually never had a childhood. She begins to press him and get him to think about it, but he's just like, stop, I don't want to talk about it. So they stop, and she pulls him outside to forget about it, and they go skinny dipping in the downpour. As she undresses, Denji's mind just unravels. All this time he's been trying not to commit to this girl because he still loves Makima, but disappearing underwater he's alone with his thoughts, and now he sees two girls in his head where there once was just one. I cannot do the atmosphere of this scene justice. When the anime comes out, this will be the part I'm probably looking forward to most. I think Reze's introduction was a little clumsy. It just came out of nowhere right after the date with Makima, which maybe felt intentional in a way, but also is just sort of abrupt. But this date is very beautiful, and the rain, which is probably the work of the Typhoon Devil, still plays to it really well. They get back inside to dry off and put clothes on, and Reze heads to the bathroom. We get a color spread of Denji's thoughts. He's speaking to Pochita, to his heart and his best friend. He says, I like two girls now, and this second girl, no, it's not Power, Kobeni, Angel Devil. Well, he's a dude anyways, I think. It's Reze and Makima, he says. Which one would you choose, Pochita? And we get this color spread of Makima and Reze in lingerie that are actually available as body pillows on the Japanese Jump website right now. I think they go live on May 31st, so I wasn't able to buy one for this video, but I'll do my best to get it for the next one. As Reze heads up to the bathroom, she gets cornered by the mercenary. He chases her to the edge of the roof and threatens her. He says he'll rip her skin off and use it to lure off Denji. She screams and he raises the knife, but then something strange happens. She grabs the knife and jumps on him, arms around his neck, locking her legs around his waist and choking him out. She speaks in his ear in Russian, singing him a song as he kicks his feet out trying to escape, in a very cold, no country for old men style murder, holding them there for minutes as he gasps for air until he passes out. What she's singing is a poem referenced by the chapter title. I'm not sure if it was originally a song or just a poem she's sort of humming to him in time, but it goes like this. The day of my date with Jane, everything's ready. In the morning we'll go to the church, we'll drink coffee and eat omelets in the cafe. Once we had our walk in the park, we'll go to the aquarium and see dolphins and penguins who Jane likes so much. After lunch we'll have a break. So, what have we done this morning? We won't talk about it until we remember. We won't remember, and at night we will sleep in the church. Once the man is dead, she looks at the water pooling at her feet and acknowledges this was in fact the work of the Typhoon Devil. She says she'll look the other way if it will dispose of the body for her, and the Typhoon Devil apologizes meekly. We get a little montage of a future festival date with her and Denji, and as they look over a cliff out onto the fireworks, she asks him to run away with her, so he can have a real life and get an education. She promises to keep him safe forever. End of Volume 5. So that volume wrapped nicely on Denji's new love interest, Reze, who unfortunately is like a Russian spy out to take his heart and is stronger than the Typhoon Devil. I wonder if Beam noticed the Typhoon Devil since he was like swimming in it the whole time. He had to have, right? Overall, this volume was just a bunch of really nice memorable dates, and I like that a lot. Angel is cute, and as a bi dude I appreciated our color spread of all the best characters in 43, including him. Alright, let's get into Volume 6. Volume 6, chapters 44 through 52. Denji looking back at Reze over the fireworks is like, I like you, but I'm not quitting my job, I'm finally getting recognition and coming to terms with my new life, and it's honestly a really brave and mature thing of Denji to say. His life has been moving really fast. It's cool that he's taking his time at this moment. That is really nice for my boy Denji. Reze says, you like someone else, don't you? And they kiss, and fireworks explode. As she pulls away, she opens her mouth and shows she's bit off Denji's tongue. He's like mouth agape, bleeding out, panicking. He immediately tries to rip the cord on his chest, but she slices off his hand, and we see it like dangling there on his chest holding the cord. Beam, seeing this, flies out of the ground and scoops up Denji, and they together plummet over the side of this cliff that was overlooking the fireworks in town below. Beam is just freaking out. He's going, bad, bad, run away, bad, she's bad news, she's bomb. I really like the text they use for Beam's bubbles in the official scan, this like crazy manic text. We see Reyes from a distance pulling the ring on her choker. It was a grenade tab all along, the whole time. Whoa. Her head explodes and her body parts just fly everywhere, and they reform together in this mass of wires, and she becomes a literal bombshell babe. I don't know how to feel about this design right now. It doesn't really work. Like, either lose the black parts of the top so it looks like her old outfit, or lose the skirt so it actually looks like a dress. I don't know. It looks pretty cool in action though. Check out this shot as she chases after Denji and Beam. It reminds me of like a velociraptor or something. It's just, the action is so sharp. Beam goes big head cheat code mode and defends Denji despite his fear. We see that Reyes can use her touch to cause massive explosions and obliterates Beam, making him look like the damn dried out SpongeBob movie fish. I really like Beam's design, by the way, in and out of his three-eyed shark devil mode. They're both just simple, fun, super memorable. Reminds me of like old 90s adverts or like those shark fin swimming goggles.
Better jump back, it's a shark attack.
You get attack mask with underwater goggles and webbed gloves for turns at speed, and shark fin flippers for torpedo power.
Super Swimmer Shark Attack includes mask with underwater
But
goggles.
it's cool to see him bust that new form out when he's cornered, and I'm excited to see more of it. As for Reyes, if the logic of demon power is the more feared they are by humans, the more powerful they become, Reyes should be up there with like the gun devil as one of the scariest things there is. Bombs are second only to guns as instruments of warfare and death. Like, you think of guns and bombs as like military war. Beam, knowing who she was, seemed a little bit weird at first, since she was just like a new character to Denji, but if Beam was ever a more normal human, he knows what a bomb is, and his devil inside, if he can communicate with it like Denji, probably knows about one of the more powerful of its kind too, so he has a good reason to be scared and maybe know who this is. Some civilian freelance hunters approach the bomb devil with swords, seeing her blow shit up, and she stretches out an arm and just flicks this tiny sparkling beam of light towards them, kind of like a sparkler, just little flashes illuminating in the dark. And you see their faces light up in this dark stretch of the road, then explode, just blowing them up and their car. This trickling beam of light is so effective for getting that sound, speed, and feeling across. It's crazy. It's a really just simple and unique piece of art that really speaks for itself. Beam and Denji have now escaped. Meanwhile, we see Aki boxing at a training facility with another safety hunter guy. It looks like Aki beat this dude's shit in. The coach is like, "Aki, I'll be vice captain in 5 years. Then I'll make sure you join my squad, where you're not with all those freaks and devils." And Aki seems genuinely appreciative. As they walk out, Angel is like, "Why are you so happy? You'll be dead in 5 years. And then, man, I wish I was dead in 5 years. Something I'm going to talk about now that I realize is more significant and will come up again. A while back, Aki and Angel had a conversation together at about the same time that Denji and Reyes did about the country mouse versus the city mouse. The city mouse gets to eat good food and live an exciting life, but faces tons of danger, while the country mouse gets to relax and have an easy life, but misses the action and exceptional food that comes with that struggle. Angel is a country mouse, and would rather be dead than busy here in the city. He just wants to chill. Denji is a city mouse, and would rather have an exciting life than an easy life. He loves all this shit. Sure enough, Angel is a lazy boy. After who knows how long as a devil, he's sick of finding purpose, of struggling in life. He just wants to chill. Angel is interrupted when a bloody Beam and Denji crawl into the front gate of the facility where they were boxing. Beam is like, "Ugh, bomb devil after us, allied with gun devil." Aki's like, "Alright, slow down. How do you know this? Answer or die." And Beam is like, "Can't say. I'll be killed. Makima made me promise." Now, Aki has to brush this aside to deal with the threat of a super powerful devil, but this is our first moment of like, okay, Makima for sure knows some shit, and is for sure keeping some secrets. Reyes is back in her human form, approaching the guard outside. She's like, "Hey boys. Devil's chasing me, help." And the guard is like, "Okay, then why are you smiling and waving and walking towards us right now?" And Reyes is like, whatever, that didn't work, and pulls her choker pin. The next chapter, number 46, has a very cute color opener of Reyes. She's like permanently drawn with a blush, and it's very endearing. Also, I eat my words about her design this chapter because it all makes sense now, and I didn't see it in the first time I saw her. A few devil hunters rush in to back up the outside guard and let Aki escape and call for backup. One raises a hand and causes mold to grow inside Rei's head. She starts to bleed and out of her face, and so she blows off her own head and then picks it up off the ground and throws it at them so hard that it dents the concrete wall next to them. It then explodes, and through the debris her body forms from the head instantly and starts attacking them. Her headless body starts jogging towards them and then jumps on the lead guard and grabs onto him. She speaks and explodes, blowing the windows out of the whole building in a massive fire. So since she exploded her old body, her new head forms a new naked body, and now she's just wearing the dynamite dress, and her design makes sense. It's now more of an elegant dress with gloves. It even looks like she's ballroom dancing in this shot with this guard. It is no longer way over-designed with 3 layers of clothes. Listen, I thought I was just horny asking this to be stripped in this way, but it's canon now, so it's fine. The boss walks into this scene of exploded windows and fire and does the little hand gesture Aki did and swallows her with the fox devil. And the fox devil's just like, ugh, gross, and fades out of existence. And now the last 2 hunters face down Rei's and we cut away. Poor fox devil's being forced to swallow a bunch of gross shit. He doesn't want any of it. Next we see this funny family road trip shot of this wood-sided sedan with Aki driving, Denji fucking dead in the passenger seat, and Beam and Angel just chilling in the back. This has got to be intentional. It looks so funny. Suddenly Aki's like, future devil, ow, what the fuck? Then Reze slams down in front of the car, holding the 2 heads of the last hunters in this horror movie headlight shot. Terrifying. But the hips? I imagine anytime anything bad happens to Aki now, he just yells at the future devil and then it happens and he sighs. So Rez holding these is like, see, I'm unstoppable, give up. And Aki just nonchalantly drives around her and she's just like, ah. She jumps on the back of the car and is sideswiped away by the violence fiend who swoops in to kick her off the car and axe kick her into the ground. Backup is here. Reyes, despite being knocked down a good foot into the road, blocks it with her arms. There's always the joke about anime arm wrists being invincible because they always block the super heavy blows like this and then go flying. Violence seeing that she blocked this attack despite getting knocked into the earth is Kobeni, I know I called you here, but change of plans. This chick is hella strong. Time to retreat. We see Kobene, who is way ahead of him, already groveling in fear in this dark nighttime road. Reyes doesn't really need to kill anyone, so she gets back to the chase. She's a very good horror movie villain so far, just relentless, powerful, all over the place. She can practically teleport, but has a pretty calm, methodical presence. Classic. As she approaches their car again, Denji wakes up and busts through the roof. He yells back at the bomb devil Reyes approaching. Every woman I meet wants to kill me. They want my chainsaw heart, but what about Denji's real heart? Reyes is like, well, come on, I do like you. And he's like, what, really? And Aki is yelling from the car while driving still, no, you idiot, she's lying! And Denji's like, fuck, that was close. Almost fell into that again. They start doing battle and she's kicking his ass. And she's like, dude, you're the chainsaw devil. Don't just swing your blades around, use your powers. And she kicks him 100 feet in the air and then explodes up there and whips around over top of him, shaping her leg into this giant bullet, and then using the rest of her body to explode as a gun and launch the bullet, shooting her leg down with Denji. 3 times we see explosions plummeting him faster into the ground. Fujimoto is super conscious of light in this battle, depending on the angle of the action, the background may be pure black, it might be lit up by a streetlight or fire. The most obvious shot is this one where he's above the curvature of the earth. Fujimoto also isn't afraid to get granular with the details, like I mentioned way back in chapter 1 with the zombie mafia, even when scenes are super dense, like the scene when Bomb has finally smashed Denji into the ground with her big bullet kick. We have smoke, glass, concrete, guts, metal, skin, clothing, all separate, stand out, and detailed, but all just cluttering the scene. This is the kind of shot that would put some mangaka to shame, and I'm not saying anyone is sleeping on Fujimoto, obviously, but or even any part of the shot is super dense with ink, it's too heavy. Just that there is so much damn consideration, it's beautiful. This is the culmination of all the fire and lighting work we were seeing come together in Fire Punch, the underwater study in Ningyo Rhapsody, and the kind of vast density of those scenes with all the fish. It reminds me of that scene where Togeda is running from Agni with the cut off head in the ocean back in Fire Punch. I love that scene. So, Denji's getting his shit beat in. Aki steps in to chop off Bomb's arm, and she drops Denji. The violence fiend comes in to back Aki up. They're squaring up against each other. She's like, come on, 2 against 1, this isn't fair. And then Aki's like, not too bad. Suddenly the Typhoon Devil comes crashing in through the buildings behind them in its full form to back Bomb up. This like 3-story giant baby with its brains falling out of its head and guts whipping around its body like a tornado. This is like the scariest thing we've seen up to this point. Meanwhile, Angel is grabbing a bleeding out civilian and lifting the body up, telling her not to worry, she's going to heaven. Angel feeds Denji her blood and rips her in half, and Denji pops back to life again. When he's not being controlled, Angel's a pretty good guy. He's like, hey Denji, your GF's destroying the city. Give up and mitigate the casualties, or hurry up and go kill her. And Denji's like, I'm on it. Easy clap. I got it. And Angel's like, Beam, you seem to know about Chainsaw Devil. Is there anything you might be able to help us out by telling us about Denji's power or something? And Beam is like, yeah, you know, usually the Chainsaw Devil like flies around using his chains like hooks like Spider-Man. And Denji's like, sick. Alright, Beam, I've got it. We need movement. I know what to do. Turn into a shark. And so Beam does that. And then we cut to this absolutely ridiculous shot of Denji like riding Beam, shark form, like a horse. And he's like, I gotta break in Beam as my steed. Right, Angel? Angel's like, what? And Beam is like tearing up, going, no, ow, this is not what I meant. And Denji's like, what? This is totally correct, right, Beam? And Beam is like, yeah, it's correct, you're right. And Denji's like, yeehaw! And they ride up the side of this building towards the Bomb and Typhoon. Seeing this, Aki is like, Denji, what the fuck are you doing? And Bomb is like, that's so funny. And they're about to like clash, and it hits me, and I'm like, oh, this is a Sharknado joke, duh. And then they do the Sharknado with the shark swimming around in the tornado. Violence Fiend, who is basically just a really strong guy, is like, yes, kaiju battle, nah, I'm out, and he leaves for real. He had come to back Aki up again, but he's out again. So Denji is Sharknado ripping tearing through the Typhoon Devil, spilling blood and guts everywhere, making himself revive as he gets torn apart. And Bomb takes pot shots at this power couple, and as they whip around and can't be hit, this Typhoon Devil's pulling things around it in, and it's pulling Angel and Aki in too. Angel starts to get lifted away and tells Aki to just let him go, he's ready to die. But at the cost of 2 more months of his own life, Aki is sick of watching his partners die and whips his hand out to catch Angel and pull him back in, saving him and then hugging him tight to keep him safe. We get this very sweet shot of them together. I say 2 months of his own life because that's what it cost him to touch Angel's skin for that long. At the height of this battle, it ends up just being Aki and Reyes staring each other down on a roof. She blows off his arms, and as she touches him, her body's wrapped up with his chains. An idea that Denji may have gotten from Beam with the chain hooks. As a parallel to Aki and Angel who are being held right now, Denji holds Reyes tight in the same way. And she's like, you idiot. And he's like, can you still explode if you're wet? And dives backwards off the building and into the ocean. They sink down into the deep black, and we fade out. The sun rises the next morning. Beam, Denji, and Reyes all wash up on shore. Reyes gets up and asks why Denji would save her. Does he really think that any of this was for real or she was worth saving? She gets up and is ready to give up and head home. Starts to walk away. You can tell Fujimoto loves drawing the ocean for dramatic scenes. Denji grabs her and says, even if you or this was fake, you really did teach me how to swim. And that's how I saved you. She pulls him close and blushes, then breaks his neck and walks away. Out into the sand, she really did teach him a lot. Poor guy even got to see some boobs. Next we get a little epilogue to wrap up the volume. We see the master, let's call him by his name now, it's Captain Kishibe, the strongest hunter in Division 4. He's telling a story to Denji about a Soviet fairy tale that parents would tell their naughty children there, that if they misbehaved, they'd be locked away somewhere and used as tools by the government. Turns out that story was real, and Reyes was one of those kids. We see her getting off a train on the way home, just giving up on killing Denji, when in a back alley a swarm of mice rush past her, and lump together to block off her path in the form of a body. That body falls apart to reveal Makima. Looks like she can teleport now, if no one's watching. She says, "I like the country mice too," referencing that story again. But as she puts it, she likes to watch the dogs on the farm trap and tear them apart. She finds it calming. Makima no longer really seems human at this point, as opposed to her theater date when she sympathized with the human experience and cried with Denji. This interpretation of the mice story and the idea that she was stalking Rei's date with Denji the whole time is pretty fucked up. I feel like her perspective on that date could only really be described as indifference, or a perspective of total control that doesn't faze her, and belief in Denji's latent power that he'll survive. She could have stopped this, but she was playing innocent and watching it play out. Facing down Rei's in an alley like this, they stare at each other, before a spear comes down from above and slices Rei's dominant arm into pieces. Then Rei flashes behind Makima with a knife. Another spear pierces down through Rei's heart. We see Angel looking down above. As Rei collapses, Makima holds her hand, and we see her final thoughts. She thinks about Denji and when they first met. She wondered why she didn't just kill him on that day in the cafe. Was it because she'd never gone to school either? We see Denji waiting in the cafe holding flowers, waiting for Rei to come back. The owner is like, "Come on man, I gotta close. Leave. She was way out of your league. You'll meet a girl who's right for you someday." Then Power busts in. She's back. It's Power. She blushes and says, "Ah, flowers, they suit me perfectly." End of Volume 6. So this whole volume was pretty much the Bomb Devils battle against Division 4. This would be a really fun volume to pick up because it just totally has everything. Rei's is powerful, but like I said, I would consider Bombs second to Guns. Maybe Fire is up there too, but like, same with the Tsunami Devil on the coast of Japan. That's a pretty big human fear too. I don't know, point is, Bomb's power is well deserved canonically. But boys, my original recording of the first video was like 3 hours long, and I cut it to cut it to 1 because, oh my god, these are a lot of recording. My boys. All these battles were a lot of fun. They fit neatly into this volume and still had a lot of space to breathe. I don't think I could have spoken about many other manga fight scenes, scene by scene like this, and it has a lot to do with how many places they go and how many people they meet, and that's only going to get more and more deep as we go on. If Chainsaw Man ever gets a movie for an arc, similar to how Demon Slayer got its Mugen Train movie recently at the time of writing, I think this would be a pretty good one from like the dates down to the end. But there are some other ones later on too, like the International Assassin arc that would be pretty cool. The first 5 volumes kind of fit nicely into a season, I feel like, if depending on how quickly they move. This would be a nice little jump into the next big arc. A couple points about the end of this last chapter. When you have an abuser like Makima, the more you let them convince you to do, the more power they have over you. Angel is in deep, which could be why he's so depressed. He's more or less aware of his situation. Makima spoke to Angel as Rei's died and said, "I asked you to bring Aki. Why didn't you do that? Didn't want to have him come and kill a girl? How sweet." Angel is like, "Well, I am an angel, just taking the abuse," which is a deflection that shows he does care for Aki to some extent. Maybe it was Aki saving his life from Typhoon this last arc. He doesn't want to get Aki sucked into Makima's grasp and have her abuse him in the same way. As for Power, she's back. Power Bros rejoice, and is still crushing on the disinterested Denji. It's still so funny she was gone long enough for Denji to have a little mini love arc and then get his shit beat in. But it's also sad because people want her and Denji to be a thing. Perhaps I'll rank the love interests in a bonus video or something after this. So Denji's got 2 more important lessons for this arc. The first one is like, how many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man? Don't trust someone just because they're hot. The second is, you have the potential to be much stronger than you are now, just based on the legacy of the Chainsaw Devil, so unlock that potential, Denji. Volume 7, chapters 53 through 61. So now we're beginning the International Assassin arc. You see, Rei's goal was not just to take the Chainsaw Devil's heart, but according to Makima, to blow Division 4's existence wide open, and let the world know they had the Chainsaw Man, they had fiends. There's an argument for and against this. I mean, sure, she did cause a scene and involve Typhoon Devil when the opportunity arose, and cause a massive public display, and Rei's even went home at a certain point when she probably still could have taken exhausted Denji's heart, but initially she was getting close to him undercover, and would have taken his heart only at the most opportune moment and make the least amount of scene, if possible. Almost as if she needed him in a vulnerable and alone moment to get the job done the way she wanted to do it. Regardless, just as Makima is visiting our trio following the incident and inviting Denji on another date/vacation, some suits burst in and turn on the TV, and the world news is on, displaying the fight between Division 4 and the Bomb Devil. More importantly, they're now seeing Chainsaw Man. The world knows about Chainsaw Man. So if this was Rei's goal, making Denji publicly known and making it harder for Makima to keep control of him, mission accomplished. Denji is like, oh cool, I'm on TV. And Makima and the suits just glare. Vacation cancelled, she says. Denji, consider yourself without freedom for the foreseeable future. And Denji's like, ah. And Power's like, woohoo! Hanging out with Denji more. Makima walks out, and she says to Aki, try not to die. We still want your help fighting the Gun Devil next year. What follows are some introductions to characters from around the world who were hired to take Denji's heart. First, the three brothers from America. Their house was hit by the Gun Devil, they say, and they got swallowed by a monster once, and they even all three got food poisoning, but they're still here. They say to each other, we're invincible. Their character designs kind of remind me of the Three Stooges. They got kind of like the Mo bowl cut leader looking guy, and then you have like the curly haired dude, and Mo and Larry. God, I don't know anything. If the Three Stooges can pull this off, they get $1 million. That's their motivation. Second, somewhere in the cold wilderness, we have a woman and her apprentice, Toka. As Toka hunts, skins, and eventually eats a wolf, the master woman asks him again and again, do you feel like you took a life? Do you feel like you took a life? Do you feel like you've taken a life? And he says no, not especially. She says, what you just did, we will have to do to a 16-year-old boy. He looks shocked, but willing to do this for her, since, as she puts it, once this mission is complete, the powers that be will let her live the last bit of her life in peace, and it'll be over. This feels like another abusive power dynamic. Does she have so little of her time left because of a contract like Aki? What has she been teaching Toka out in these woods? Where are these people right now? San! Somewhere in China, a long-haired woman with an eye patch named Quan Chi is covered in nude female fiends. A Chinese official informs Quan Chi of her mission, and she asks only for the civil rights and basic education of her beautiful ladies as a reward. The four of them are a dark-haired, dark pink, red-haired blood fiend. She kind of looks like Power, basically. A wordless, stitch-faced zombie-looking fiend. A brain goop Halloween fiend who says Halloween when she talks. An airheaded, donut-loving, cutesy girl with a monster-faced ponytail. Those are the four. We get this insane line about Quan Chi from Kishibe. If the entirety of the human race came together and held a bare-knuckle fighting tournament, Quan Chi would take first place. We also hear from Makima that if Germany's Santa Claus hasn't died of old age and he shows up with the devils, it's game over. 4. Germany's Santa Claus. He's given his mission. In return, he asks for 4 good-looking children of any gender, 3 for contracts, 1 for pleasure. The official says it will be arranged. I wouldn't say any of these characters super interest me right away. The closest thing we have to a power reveal is Chinese Fiend being a strong hand-to-hand fighter, and Santa Claus being game over strong. Going country to country like this, I feel like Fujimoto's characters don't look very distinct between ethnicities. That said, they all look very different despite their simplicity, like you can tell who's who. And fiends are probably stolen between countries anyways, but it's just weird when you see a character that's like, should be Chinese, should be American, and they just kind of look the same. Denji's at home laying on the floor thinking, man, what is Pochita? Why does everybody want Pochita? Aki sits on his back and is like, Denji, this trip is only postponed. We're getting that vacation. We just gotta survive. And Denji looks up at him and he's like, we just gotta kill him and we get vacation. Cool. We got this. Easy. Sometime later we meet the guards assigned to Denji and by proxy Power and Aki just out by a lake with them. The demonic duo, Denji and Power, are pissing the guards off, Denji drops his food on the ground and picks it up to eat it again. Power's talking about eating ducks that she sees in the pond. They're all just trying to keep them in check and not food poisoned, but they're causing trouble. Of the guards, we've got Angel, Aki, Kusakabe, Tamaoki, and Yoshida. The new guards aren't particularly striking or interesting, and there are more to come, but I'll show them on screen here so you can get an idea what they look like. Kusakabe is kind of nerdy in appearance, uptight, slicked back hair, demands respect. Tamaoki has his hair slicked back too, and a dot on his forehead. He may be Indian, but again, ethnicity is kind of hard to distinguish with Fujimoto. Yoshida has mid-length hair and bangs, with a slick jacket, kind of a cool looking dude. Driving into the city in a car, we see the 2 hunters who helped Makima back at the temple with scars on their face, along with one more. They're most likely all coming to help guard Denji and help out. The new guy is asking them what Makima is like, and they're like, oh yeah, about Makima, she's kinda... And then the road spikes fly out in front of their car, and they swerve off the side of this cliff, crashing off the highway and into a big tree. 3 hands burst through their broken windows, and this crazy shot of them all killing the guards comes in. Again, I'm really glad they kept the Japanese action text because it clutters the scene so nicely. Like, I see scans be butchered by Americanized scans all the time for action, where it's like, I think Bleach is a good example of one that does it pretty well, and I think Jujutsu Kaisen recently is an example that does it pretty bad. But Fujimoto is like so intentional with his action lines that I feel like the Japanese ones are just absolutely the best way to read this. The 3 guns that come in and shoot the bodyguards are from America, those 3 stooges. They zip the bodies up in bags, and we see one of them transform to look like the devil hunter they killed. They talk about this kill and practice their accents together. They joke about how killing is as easy as stepping on a kitten. I thought they'd be the sane ones of this bunch of foreign assassins, but nah, they're nuts and they're kind of annoying. I feel like their plan sucks. I mean, the devil hunters are pretty smart and fiends can smell people, so just straight up disguises isn't going to get them very far unless they can also disguise their smell. I don't know. That said, like the others, if they've been in the assassination game for a while and hunting devil hunters in the past, it's been working for them so far so good. And we see how easy it is to trick Denji, so maybe they're just idiots and this will work out. At a burger restaurant back in the city, Denji and Power are eating surrounded by their big black suit guards. Power is trying to pick off her veggies and give them to Denji, and the nerd guard Kusakabe is like yelling at her to eat her vegetables and shut up, and Denji just shoves the handful of vegetables back in her face, and she regrettably ingests some and starts to talk about vomiting them up because they taste like dirt. Denji's laughing at her and he's like, nah, I'm not eating vomit ever again, fuck off. And Power is like, don't worry, my vomit is perfect, here. And then she like gets up and runs to the bathroom to get throw up. While the guards are panicking and this is happening, a woman we recognize as the master assassin from the wilderness with Toka walks up near their table right in front of Denji and Power and then back down to her seat. She looks at her disciple Toka and pulls up her hand and places a nail down in front of them on the counter. This little nail has blood just on the tip. She says she stabbed Denji 3 times without him noticing. It's up to Toka to stab him once more to seal the contract and sacrifice a portion of her life. This is really cool. It's like Aki's sword, but a lot more of like a hitman tool. Reading back, I went to the page where she's walking in front of Denji and Power, and yeah, you can kind of see there's a flash at her arm where she would have subtly stabbed Denji, and you definitely don't catch it on the first time you're looking at this, so it's really cool to like read back and see that was there if you look for it. The master is like struggling to lift the burger to her mouth, something she's never had before. This contract is making her so weak, and she says it tastes so good she could dance, and Toka's face goes from concern for her to a small smile. It's clear that she really is cared for by him. Power runs up from her seat out through the door screaming, die, die! And we see Kobeni and the Violence Fiend holding a mess of eyeballs and blood somewhere in the city. Violence is like, what is this, the Grape Devil? Let's take a break. And Kobeni's like, absolutely, God, yes, I want to take a break. They go get ice cream together, and Kobeni is like, oh man, the last time I had ice cream was for my birthday. I got really excited and tripped and dropped it. And Violence is like, yeah, that sounds like you. Kobeni is like, you know, Violence, you're a pretty cool dude. Not very violent, pretty chill. And he's like, yeah, I actually have most of my human brain still. I'm more about peace. Don't even really know how I got here in life. I just sort of came to in this mask with Makima saving me. He doesn't really elaborate, which makes me think, yeah, Makima totally created this dude or some shit, and she's up to something. Terrifying as ever. As they're going along their way, one of the brothers, disguised as the Devil Hunter, these stooge American brothers, rushes out with blood on his chest, and he's like, stop guys! My partner, Tendo, and Subaru were killed on the way here. Go tell HQ, quick! And Violence is like, alright, I'll go do that. The brother is like, what a couple of idiots. Didn't even show them my badge ID. Well, looks like only one of the brothers can transform. I wonder what the other brothers do, or if they all transform like this. Regardless, they've successfully infiltrated because Kobene and Violence are doofuses. Denji and Power are chilling on the floor at home. Denji is like, man, they're totally using us as bait. Aki walks in and is like, yep, gotta lure out the hunters so we can go on vacation. Power says, that's not fair, what's my reward? And Aki is like, what do you want? And she's like, I want to suck a human's blood until he dies. And he's like, okay, you can suck Denji's blood until he dies. And then she's like, sweet, I'm gonna suck Denji dry, god damn. Ever since she was taken away to have her blood drained, she is like all over Denji all the time in every scene. She absolutely loves him, and he is so disinterested. It is very sad. Poor girl. I mean, if that's your type, I can totally see why she's such a fan favorite, second place in the most recent popularity poll at the time of writing, behind Aki. She's hilarious, she's a perfect love interest, she's just there for Denji at this point in the story. The next chapter opens with the disguised brother rushing towards Aki and the bodyguards. He's dressed as Kurose still. The last time Kurose saw Aki in chapter 34, he said that Aki is so cringe that it gives him goosebumps. But hey, he's rooting for him anyways. Kurose is basically not the type of guy who would consider Aki an equal at all, and yet, as he approaches Aki, he says, please, let me come on this mission. And dead giveaway. I mean, right? Like, Aki is pretty indifferent to this, but he should be like, this is really weird. Meanwhile, Kobene is showing off her new car to everybody. She's just bought this with her own money. She's like, now I can drive my family around, yeah! And Power is like, oh cool, you said this is my car now? And she gets in, and Kobene's like, wait, stop, no, don't get in my car! And then Power's like, don't worry, I've totally got a license, I can drive cars. And Kobene is too timid to stop her and like gets in the passenger seat and is like, alright, well, maybe don't. Kurose bro shakes Denji's hand and is like, so you're the chainsaw devil then. When BAM! They get hit with Kobene's car. We get this shot that actually made me laugh out loud of Power like driving and Kobene clutching the side of her as she's like, oh! So now Kurose and Denji are both bleeding out in the street, and Kobene is like mind break mode. She's like, fuck my car! And we get her taking in every single individual scene, each panel at a time, and her breath is just rapidly reflecting on these shots of every detail. And we see Power sweating like crazy too, and then she stops and she's like, you know, this is your car, so it's your fault. Bye. And Kobene's like, oh no, you can't. And then Power's getting out of the car and she's like, trying to blame shit on me, huh? And slams the door on Kobene and takes off. And Aki's like, Power, what the fuck did you do? You hit him with the car. And Power is peace signing out. But then we see Kurose on the ground bleeding out. His face turns into someone else. And the other hunters recognize he was an American hitman in disguise. And Power is like, ha, I knew it. This was totally on purpose. I definitely hit him with that car on purpose. And the civilians nearby, having witnessed this car crash and blood everywhere, go scatter. A certain pair of civilians we follow into a back alley, who were the two brothers in disguise, watching from a distance. One is throwing up and the other one is like freaking out. He's like, oh my god, our brother. And then we see a hand come out from the side of the alley and pull him off screen. Then there's a pool of blood that trails back into the alley and near the other brother who's throwing up, but still in disguise. Yoshida, the cooler looking bodyguard, walks out and smiles, and he's like, well, a pro wouldn't throw up, so you're probably not one of the brothers, and then he leaves. I almost get the feeling that this fucker just let the last brother live to like instill fear in him. Yoshida is officially the standout and scariest bodyguard. Man, this long ass chainsaw video is messing me up. I'm remembering a minor Japanese character name. I've been reading manga for like 15 years and I can't remember anyone's name. So, in the next chapter, we see Quan Chi is in town, causing chaos with her many fiend babes. They immediately crash their car into some driver who yells at them out his window, and the Halloween fiend just looks at him out the car window and says, "Halloween." In return, he says, "Halloween?" And the girls get out of their car that they just crashed, and then they go inside and order conveyor belt sushi at this restaurant. Zombie fiend is just laying lifeless as ever on the table. Blood fiend looking girl's eating her plate, like chipping it with her teeth. And monster ponytail fiend says some fish facts, and Quan Chi is like indifferent to the fish facts. Halloween fiend says Halloween, as she does, and the waiter sweats and looks at her and says Halloween. Meanwhile, the remaining American brother takes on the shape of Kurose because it's the only person they had intel on, and he's looking through Kurose's stuff back at his hotel, and he finds an old photo of Kurose at the beach with his partner and another man. A friendly note is written on the back of this photo. It says, "Next time you're in Tokyo, let's go swimming again together." Well, he's in Tokyo now, so he says this guy must have intended to go visit his friend, so the brother decides to go ahead and do that. The two have beers and talk about life, and as the brother learns more about Kurose's family, his past, his girlfriend, he sees an old photo of him, and he looks in Kurose's eyes, and Kurose looks back. He begins to cry. Looking into the eyes of Kurose, he says, "I'm sorry," and he doesn't know what he's doing. His friend is just like, "Man, it's okay. I don't know what's going on, but I'm here for you." We see police outside the hotel that maybe would have caught the brother if he had been staying there and not at this friend's house. That night, the brother is lying awake in the dark next to Kurose's friend, and the friend asks him, "Why don't you quit your job? That job that's gonna get you killed. I mean, your brother got eaten by devils. How do you think he'd feel if he saw you still working there?" The assassin pictures his own brothers who just passed away, and repeats the words they told themselves before they left America on this trip. "We're immortal, because we're ruthless, soulless, and emotionless. So don't be afraid. A pro always gets the job done." Despite what this American hitman brother just said out loud, he's not emotionless. He's thinking about his brothers, and he's thinking about Kurose on a personal level. And this little side story about visiting Kurose's friend was really sweet and adds some background to him. It adds some background and personality to this brother. As he straightens up and thinks about his lost siblings, it seems like this brother is planning to set back out and finish the job and kill Denji without his disguise and just do what he can. I gotta say, I got a lot more out of this little side story on my second read through. I'm really glad I came back to it. Before this chapter ends, we get a little glimpse of Santa Claus's power too. He places his hand on the shoulder of some civilian in the streets, and he turns into what resembles a puppet. Suddenly we're surrounded by puppets, and he says, "Can't deliver presents all by myself." So Santa Claus's power is to turn people into puppets. For some reason, Shonen Jump doesn't have this next chapter, 59, available on the app. I wonder if there's something that needed to be censored here. It's kind of weird, so I found it on some third-party site, so let's go check it out there. Okay, yeah, sure enough, the assassins are heading out in this next chapter, and we open with a color double-page spread of Quan Chi and her harem scissoring in a 5-woman orgy. Everything is covered with the hands of the other fiends, sort of tastefully in this ensemble, but yeah, wow, I understand why Jump didn't want to include this in their app, or maybe censored it for some reason. In Emoto no Ane, Fujimoto's previous manga before he started Fire Punch, we do see some essentially uncensored genitals, so I don't have any doubts that this was already censored once before getting approved in this form, and then had to be pulled anyways. Beyond that though, this is a pretty visual chapter with a lot of build-up. Essentially, Makima narrates the overview. Santa Claus is closing in with dozens of dolls. When these people become dolls, they never get their bodies back. She tells Beam to help Denji and Prinz, the spider fiend. "You guys protect Denji, get him out of there if anything happens." We learn that their plan to use Denji and power as bait were mostly for the goal of killing Santa Claus. They've had guards in every building on their route so far every day, preparing to take Santa Claus out and kill him as soon as he appears. The team of guards and Denji enter a department store, and Kusakabe immediately turns around and slams his hand down on a summoning circle, blowing smoke through his fingers at the entrance doors in this sort of Naruto jutsu type spell, petrifying a group of dolls that were all piling in behind them. He said he's been noticing their rhythmic footsteps for a while now and knows Santa is near now. Aki says, "Well, a powerful devil needs a powerful contract, right? You can't just have that many of them. You probably got them all." Then a flood of like 30 more dolls just bursts in through the glass and at this department store. The team starts to run and retreat up some stairs. All they have to do is touch a human to turn them into a doll, so any touch by this group of dolls could be fatal for the entire group. We see Santa just having coffee, watching from the second story of some cafe nearby. The disguised brother is in some toilet nearby, chanting, "I'm immortal, I'm immortal." And Toka is somewhere else nearby, clutching his little nail. Cutting back to the orgy, the fiends say, "We're all exhausted, can we call it a day today?" And Quan Chi is like, "Oh, I'll mess you up even more." Is that like a sexual threat? I don't know, but that's what she said. Man, it's a shame this chapter got censored. It was pretty cool. I hope nobody missed out on it because of that. In this next chapter, we see Quan Chi's power and Angel's halo ability. Both just nuts and very cool. I'm gonna say that a lot this arc, though. Angel's halo floats off his head and a couple feet in front of him. He says, "Usage, 5 years," and a sword comes down out of his halo and into his hand. From what we know, this isn't his lifespan, it's years that he's taken and drained from other people. He swipes his arm with sword in hand and instantly 5 dolls drop dead. Aki asks if this is so easy, why he didn't just do this to begin with, and Angel says, "Well, I have my reasons." I wonder if Makima is controlling how often he uses the lifespan that he's stored up, like his power is just storing longer and longer. The group with Denji is ascending the stairs to run away. Down at ground level, on the street across the way, Quan Chi and her fiends appear in an alley. She speaks in Chinese and says, "As always, girls, please deal with the leftovers." Thank you, Cyro, on readchainsawman.com in the comments for that translation just literally last month. And Quan Chi becomes a blur. She rushes through the crowds, ninja running, arms back, one thick-ass leg forward, flying from her location, across the street, through the crowd, through the doors, up the stairs, and behind Denji in an instant. Some hunters turn to see the fiend standing in the alley and say, "Hey, what are you guys doing over there?" The ponytail monster fiend smiles and says in Chinese, "Ha, the corpses are talking at us." Just then, the top half of this hunter's head slides off and hits the floor. Then 48 more bodies, all down the street and through the building and up the stairs, are cut in half from the neck, the face, the stomach. Aki senses this mass death and yells at Angel to put up his guard. Then Angel's kind of like, "What?" And then Aki rushes in and throws it up for him, saving his life again and making his sword bounce back and knocking them both over. Quan Chi is behind them, just looking at her chip-to-hell sword she just used, and throws them to the ground, having just wiped out the entire crowd behind her. The crowd outside is now just a blanket of bodies. What felt like a busy crowd before is now just empty streets down the road. Quan Chi's fiends are kind of stepping over the bodies to make their way to the department store, and we see Kashibe, Violence, and Kobene getting out of Kobene's car, just arriving now. Monster Ponytail Girl is peering through a loop in her hair to see Kashibe's contracts. She says he has claw, needle, and knife contracts, but almost nothing left of his own to give in exchange, so he's no threat. But of course, immediately one scene later, he's dragging the Ponytail and Blood Fiend by the necks upstairs. He throws them down to Power and Denji and says, "Just watch." Then sits down at a table and beckons Quan Chi to sit at the opposite end next to him. I should also just throw out that Yoshida, that one guard who has kind of the cool haircut, lived through the mass beheading and tried to attack Quan Chi but was immediately knocked down. Pretty much just Aki, Angel, Yoshida, and Denji and Power survived the mass beheading. I guess Aki and Angel went downstairs. So it's just Kashibe and Quan Chi at a table overlooking the city, with Denji and Power kind of holding her fiends hostage. This scene reminds me of Denji and Himeno back in the first part of the story, but their posture tells a pretty different story. Quan Chi isn't here for this shit. She's like sitting up straight and uncomfortable in her chair with a half-opened eye at Kashibe side-eyeing him, obviously pretending to be amused. Kashibe is pretending to be relaxed with his hunched-over posture and is kind of eyeing Quan Chi carefully to make sure he can talk to her without her flipping out on him. Kashibe pulls out a notepad and has 2 conversations with Quan Chi at once. Verbally, they're killing time talking about getting old. Kashibe might be doing this so that the authorities can close in and end this. That's kind of his act here. But on the notepad, he says something totally different that shifts this whole story. It says, "Makima is listening. Follow along. I'm going to kill her." But Quan Chi isn't really interested in working with him. She says, "Be a good dog and keep your collar on. It's probably safer that way." The American brother, who's been hiding until now, bursts in and starts taking gunshots at Kashibe, but he just dodges it and stands up. That's the end of Volume 7. So we opened up this arc and all the assassins took their first shot at Denji. I did not expect to like the brothers as much as I did on this reread. I really feel for them and the fact that the last brother came back despite losing his family. It's really fucked that he's still going after Denji. Quan Chi is an underrated waifu and I'm surprised she isn't talked about more, like an actual sex god, Sonic the Hedgehog type hoe. I expected her to be more reliant on her fiends, but no, they're just like her groupies. She's kicking ass herself. Santa Claus is super fucked up. I wonder what the devil requires to let Santa Claus use his powers. Is it just that he keeps the bodies he turns into dolls? This is a really cool idea for a fear, like the fear that puppets or dolls are watching you, and that the puppets he uses as Santa Claus are just hidden in plain sight. Then there's Toka. I guess we'll get more of him next volume. If his only purpose is to use his own life to take others with the contract nail, that kinda sucks, man. That's sad and I feel for you, but it's kinda boring. Oh hey, we also got introduced to Kobene's car this volume. A fan favorite character somehow. And shows up in the popularity poll. And Power performed Intentional Hit and Run. I like Denji's bodyguards more than I expected, too. It's a shame they all got super killed just now, except for that one. That's about it though. This volume was pretty cool, a lot of cool action. We're approaching some of the best stuff in the story, so on to Volume 8. Volume 8! Chapters 62 through 70. Hey, you know how I was just talking about Kobene's car? Well, this chapter opens with Quan Chi knocking Kashibe out the window and bam, down on Kobene's car, smashing the roof in with his back and blowing out the windows. Thankfully, he kind of drags a knife into the building on his way down and slows the fall, but he still eats shit. Then he gets up and rubs his neck and he's like, ugh, and walks a few feet away. It says, ow. And then the American brother also gets thrown out the window and smashes down onto Kobene's car, but he doesn't break his fall at all. He just screams in pain and Kobene just looks down at him sadly. Beam bursts in to rescue Denji. It's about that time. Yoshida gets up to request a rematch with Quan Chi, the bodyguard guy. And Power fights the fiends. We see that the girl who looks like her, who I referred to as the Blood Fiend earlier, is probably just the Fire Fiend because she blasts a huge cloud of flame across the room, again like a Naruto jutsu kind of circle cloud of flame. Quan Chi really knows how to pick her ladies. She's got some real picks here. So yeah, Yoshida's squaring up with Quan Chi and they're actually on even footing. Kind of going blow for blow. He blows some blood out of his nose and he's like, wow, a direct hit would probably kill me. Your strength isn't human. What are you? And Toshida's a really cool character. Ever since his off-screen kill of the Hitman brother way back, he's had a strong presence. It's nice to see more of him and get a spotlight on him. He's cool. Denji is running away with Beam when he's stopped by a sharp pain in his left foot. Looking down, we see Toka pretending to be a corpse, and near his head is a nail sticking out through Denji's foot. Denji starts rising up in the air, his arms being spread apart. He starts panicking and looks down at Beam, who's now just watching in awe as Denji is being crucified like the Katana Man was with Aki's nail way back in the first few volumes. Toka gets up, stands up, and knocks Beam out with his foot. He just kicks him in the head. Man, Fujimoto really doesn't know how to draw kicks. This one is maybe intentionally just like that Aki kick on Katana Man. Even if it's anatomically correct, I don't know, it just looks like a joke kick. Chapter 63, A Trip to Hell. What happens next is almost hard to talk about without reading ahead, because we're meant to infer what it means. So I'll do my best to explain and kind of give my perspective after I first read it. This is the first chapter of what feels like real cosmic horror, and a scratch on the surface of the vehicle that is Fujimoto's deep Chainsaw Man fiction. Something that he did get into in Fire Punch a little bit at the very end. And he did hint at Nayuta of the end with the big hands coming down with the big blades. So after Toka kills Denji, the story is over as we know it. In a way it shouldn't be yet. Like, Denji is dead. Toka stands there and looks at this scene. Everything's kind of quiet. And suddenly his master walks out from behind a wall and says, "Don't move. It's okay now. You're a part of the family. There were times when I was harsh on you, but it was for your own good." Toka says, I don't understand. Aren't we done? We can leave now." And she says, "Toka, I'll tell you the secret to making a sophisticated doll. Take the human, you'll turn into a doll, and add emotions only humans have. Adoration, worship, pity, and the secret ingredient, guilt." She touches him, and we see flashbacks of their life together. She grabs Toka's collar and says, "It's finished." He looks like he's having a heart attack. He convulses and his head flies back. His eyes roll back into his head, and suddenly he's standing at attention. He straightens up, his posture mirrored by Santa Claus. We see them both at the same time. He walks into the department store. She says, "Bye-bye, Grandpa." And Santa Claus, his hand turns into a knife the way we've seen the puppets do, and he waves goodbye and speaks.
"I offer my heart and my beloved children in exchange. Hell Devil, please call all living things in this department store into hell."
We see a close-up of Aki's face. He's sweating. He doesn't understand what this future means. He's seeing something he doesn't understand. We see 4 children eating at a table. A long, bony finger the size of a large alligator stretches in from off-screen and covers the faces of 3 children. Then we see Santa bleeding out on the ground, and his black blood envelops the entire panel and cuts to a void in the same color. Everyone alive in the department store is standing in this void, looking around. Only Toka stands there expressionless, staring at them. Starkly contrasting them, they're all panicking. He's just standing there, completely still, looking at them. Outside the department store, everyone in the regular daylight is looking up. The master sits on a puppet. She says, "Have fun on your trip, Toka." Yoshida is watching. He's speechless. He had been tossed through the window a second ago. The American hitman is tearing up, mouth agape, looking up, and Kashibe is just like, what in the hell is that? A giant, open, 6-fingered hand the size of this entire building comes down and snatches it up. We zoom out, and where there was once a black void, the hunter and the hitmen, all the ones that were alive in the department store, look around at a sky of doors and a sea, endless sea of grassy plains. We're in hell. So the master, Toka, and Santa Claus are connected in some way. My first reaction to Santa's death and the master's will being passed on was there's a bloodline of devil hunters who used the puppet and hell devils, which is why Makima feared them so much, these 2 really scary devils, passing down their skills in exchange for their own lives once they reach a certain age. It's like family line. The unkilled 4th grandchild will most likely be the next adoptive person in line from that big finger that covered the other 3. But what I think also could have happened, because the puppet devil line has to start somewhere, is that this woman, the master, had raised Santa to become a flawless puppet to make contracts and do her bidding. Then she did the same for Toka now, as he'll be the new flawless puppet, and Santa Claus is just passed down as a moniker for these flawless puppets. The last of these 4 children will be the next flawless puppet in line, and the master is just continuing to do this. I decided to look it up on that same website I got the Chinese translation to see what people were saying on this chapter page, and then read it in the wiki from this time, and it seems like everyone was confused about this chapter, and the 2 theories that I had were pretty much in line with what everybody else was thinking. There's some argument also on whether Santa is still a pedo, since he said to the German government in his introduction that he wanted a child for pleasure. My takeaway is that he told the German agent that to keep things quiet when the last child disappeared, because he plans to groom it into the next flawless puppet. Not that this completely rules it out, but he does call them his beloved children before he dies, so he probably has some care for them and doesn't plan to do anything weird with them. Maybe he does, I don't know. Anyways, we're in hell now. An empty bathtub, scattered fingers, and a million doors is what we see in these fields. Quan Chi is like, alright, temporary truce, something's up here. The fiends are freaking out. And yeah, they are freaking out. Angel is like, this is hell sent, we're in hell. He knows what's going on. The ponytail monster, let's call her the knowledge fiend from here. It seems like that's a good guess at what her power is. The knowledge fiend says, we're being watched by a dangerous devil. Far beyond these planes, devils far more dangerous than some gun devil. The devils with the names of primal fears are watching us. These devils who have never once experienced death and transcended. The very instant we draw their hostility, we die. Lady Quan Chi, permission to kill myself? Then it was too late. A door opens in the sky and the darkness devil, a speck of black, drops and hits the ground, just out of sight. Aki kind of squares up and holds his sword out in front of him, meaning he's willing to sacrifice his life for whatever he feels is coming at him in the future. Everyone gathers behind him, but suddenly the horizon is just black, and we see a spacesuit holding its hands in prayer. Then another one, an entire row of spacemen sliced at the waist, their guts spread across as shadows like a carpet towards the abyss, and we hear a frog ribbit. And then everyone's arms are severed, floating above their heads. Everyone falls to their knees, but Toka just kneels towards the darkness devil. He's hard to perceive. In this scene, he may be 5 bodies holding them together, 3 pairs of legs, 6 pairs of arms. It looks like the devil has his hands on his hips and a big grin, but it's all just up to interpretation. In the next panel, he kind of hunches over, his form removing some of the panel dividers and breaking the fourth wall. The panel's now just separated by severed arms that he's brought into the air. Toka looks up at him and says, I am the doll devil. I've brought you Chainsaw's heart as per the contract. Please give me the power to kill Makima. We see the official who spoke to Santa Claus left a letter on the bench that day. In English it reads, Makima can hear you. The day of Armageddon is near. Kill Makima. Thank you, Chainsaw Man Source on Twitter, for that translation. So that's why he was doing this. He got that note from the government. In present day, a hand reaches out from beyond the comic panel. It's a white hand that sort of stretches out from beyond the borders, again breaking the fourth wall, holding a speck of flickering darkness that looks like pen ink that was tossed on the page and sort of left to dry in a clump. And this clump of ink is placed on the master's tongue, the puppet doll master, who from here we'll just call the doll devil. She blushes and says, a piece of the darkness devil's flesh, and she eats it. So it looks like the theory on the doll devil users being a chain of family hunters was sort of correct. They're all human raised by the doll devil, who are realistic masquerades. Naturally, the doll devil has many puppets all over the world to take form, but chooses to create these perfect dolls as often as she can, and spends a lot of time making sure they have ties to the hell devil and darkness, using their lifespan freely since they have no fear of running out and can just grab more bodies and keep feeding this power. It's pretty terrifying. I can see why Makima wants this one dead. When everyone's arms were severed in hell, speaking of Makima, it can be read as Makima. There's some discussion online whether this was intentional or if it spelled out anything at all. But personally, when I was looking at these arms for a long time, trying to see if they spelled out anything, I came to Makima without knowing that. I came to it myself and then found out that other people came to the same conclusion. When it clicked, it clicked. I think it's intentional. Here's a redraw as an example on screen. I'll put that up there. Why does everyone want to kill Makima so badly? Is she gonna cause the end of the world by summoning the Gun Devil? That's where things seem to be headed, but if the Gun Devil is not the most powerful thing in this universe, I guess the Earth isn't also the most important thing. I don't know, but I don't know what Makima's got going on, but if it's scarier than the Gun Devil, it's pretty... and this thing, it's pretty scary. So one by one, in hell, the hunters are showing sort of malice towards the Darkness Devil, and in turn, he kills them in an instant. His sweeping black form, slicing them to pieces and just taking the comic panels all over the place and We get this sort of freeform drawing style for this chapter. It's really cool. Kusakabe starts using his limp, bloody sleeve to draw a summoning circle around him, and the Darkness Devil just turns into him and pulls out an arm and just makes the Stone Devil apparate in his hand out of thin air, grabbing it by the throat and crushing it, and Kusakabe into stone in an instant. Beam tries to get down and reach up to Denji's cord and pull it, but he gets sliced apart too. Denji gets up to attack, his chainsaw is coming out of all of his limbs, and the devil shrieks at him. We see all these faces scream from the darkness, but Denji's body gets twisted up and thrown to the ground too. The Violence Devil removes his mask and attacks, and we see his body just explode with muscle as he starts trying to beat this thing, but his holes just get blown into his body by the Darkness Devil. He tries to come down on him from above with his last leg, and a sword comes up from above the Darkness Devil's head, this ornamental sword with a bell on it, sort of like Angel's summoning sword. It explodes the Violence Devil in a shower of blood, and we get this final shot of the devil standing above Aki and Angel, the last left who have shown no malice. This is destroying Aki mentally, who's watching so many of his friends die again in front of him in this world. The next chapter opens and the devil turns his head to Angel, who bleeds from the face and falls over, then back down at Aki, who sort of does the same. The Spider Devil, who'd been here but hiding until now, crawls up from the ground and attacks. The frog ribbits again, and all of her limbs fly off her body. Makima, in a mortal world, sitting on her pile of puppet bodies, just smiles and says, "You damn Darkness Devil, making me come to you. Alright, Prinz, call me." And Prinz, the spider fiend, just falls apart, her skin zipping like a zipper in half. Makima's standing there in hell. Makima looks and points at the Darkness Devil. The devil points back, and the devil is made to bow in a spatter of blood, her power forcing it to the ground. It lifts up its body again, and Makima raises an entire hand. Her arm snaps, but her other arm she places a palm on Toka's head and speaks. And as she speaks, Toka begins to speak too. "Hell Devil, I offer you all of myself, so please send us back," using Toka's power through her control. Aki is lying on a roof face down. On the street, a pile of puppet corpses is rumbling, when out from all of it emerges an amalgamation of human parts. The Doll Devil has awakened with the Darkness Devil's power, and everyone's back on Earth. So if the Darkness Devil can control human bodies to form his own, and sever others' connections, and the Doll Devil has the ability to quickly gather a limitless supply of human bodies, this is a pretty OP combination. Plus he's like invincible in the dark and can break the fourth wall and control elder powers. It's just like the, Pirates of the Caribbean ghouls, and they can't be hurt in the dark. Is that a stretch? Is that anything? Doll Devil really looks fake at first, like a stop-motion animation character all put together like this. But you have to keep in mind that just moments ago these were real human corpses and not dolls, so she's really just like a giant human centipede of all these like raw, broken body parts. It's pretty fucked up. So Doll Devil lunges for Makima with her new power, who is cradling Denji. And Makima just rips his chain and says, "Come on, Denji, will you save me?" And Denji wolfs and flies into action. He's back alive. Immediately getting knuckle dusted through like 10 stories by the Doll Devil. He just gets up and is like, "Oh, I just woke up." Made me laugh. At a distance, Yoshida is chilling with Kishibe, who's letting his devil fight the doll's back, chilling on a big octopus arm. That's Yoshida's contract devil. Seems pretty OP, it's just swinging all over the place and causing havoc. I wonder if he doesn't have to give much in return since the Octopus Devil isn't super scary. He tells Kishibe that, "Don't worry, Makima isn't listening. He just wants to talk." Octopus checked for lesser creatures she would be controlling to check in, like mice or birds. He says something's going on. Makima and Santa are both making moves on something that has nothing to do with protecting Denji, so this can't be what this is really about. So we were right about Makima being able to listen in via like mice and birds in our first video. Kishibe is like, "Don't go sticking your nose into Eldritch Horror shit, Yoshida." And he's like, nah, I'm too busy for that. I have finals coming up. Kashibe's like, is that for high school? And Yoshida's like, are you an idiot, old man? Zombie Fiend is cradling the severed head of Quan Chi on the edge of the department store roof. They made it back to Earth, but everyone is kind of dead or beheaded or whatever from the Darkness Devil. Zombie Fiend digs her bare hand into Quan Chi's empty eye socket. Gross, dude, I hate this shit. But she pulls out an arrow and then drops the head off the roof into a pile of puppet bodies below. And the pile explodes, and out bursts the Archery Fiend. By the looks of it, she's posed with crossbows for hands and is butt nude. The Doll Devil refers to her as humanity's first devil hunter. She's like, oh, you're here. And maybe like Denji, she's a fiend. She looks kind of like him. She has the crossbows out of her limbs in the same way he has chainsaws. But the first devil hunter is kind of a weird moniker because she's doesn't look that old, but I guess this whole fiend thing isn't too old either, at least as humans know it today. Also, her like ripcord equivalent was just an arrow being pulled out of her eye. I think the idea is it's like pulling an arrow out of a backpack, you know? But like it doesn't really make a lot of sense visually. Like make it more traditional looking arrow, or maybe like Zombie Chan's pulling a string out of your eye, like pulling a string back on an arrow. I don't know, it doesn't really work for me. I couldn't really tell what they were going for at first. So she gets back up by Denji, and they form a little truce together to kick the Doll Devil's ass, blowing it to pieces as it regenerates over and over again. Denji decides to keep the doll army at a distance while Archery Devil zips around at sonic speed, lobbing arrows at it. The many dolls chasing Denji start like crying as if they feel real human pain and chasing him up the side of the building. He's like using his feet blades to stick to the wall like spikes and screaming that this is some real supervillain shit and to cut it out and making them scream like real people. We see the sun starts to set on the city and the Doll Devil kind of crawls out of the building and into the dark. Hunched over, her skin begins to change color and she sprouts horns and lowers her head, smiling ominously at Denji. She's becoming like a full Darkness Devil. She kicks him into a gas station real quick and turns to the Archery Fiend. She said, while you were trying to kill me, I made a few of your women into dolls. Knowledge, Fire, and Zombie Fiend are all dollified, and Quan Chi is like, ah, crap, this again? You know, you already killed them, and I already kind of yelled at you there for that earlier. Remember that? You bitch. The dolls stab Quan Chi because she can't fight back, and the Doll Devil is about to turn her into a puppet when we cut to Denji, who is dumping gasoline on his head. Once he is fully soaked in gasoline, he kind of starts his blades and clashes them together with his hands real quick and sets himself on fire. He screams, "This is the power of light!" and attacks, and he's on fire, and he sets Doll Devil on fire, and she can't regenerate because the fire is making her super on fire and bright. He managed to like warp his chain around her waist, and she's trying to run away, but she keeps getting pulled back in. She piles dolls on him. She tries to get him just completely ripped apart, but he drinks their blood and keeps coming. And one of the dolls like drives a car into him and it explodes on him because he's on fire, and he just keeps reviving and getting back up and dragging her closer with his chain. And she's like, I don't understand how you can keep getting back up. This is scary. She's actually starting to fear him and this relentless wave of damage he brings with him. It's pretty cool. He finally yanks her all the way in and kicks her body to pieces in this huge double-page spread. It's pretty sweet. Then he like picks up a car and slams it on her and explodes it on her and obliterates her body. And she may be invincible in the darkness, but this fireball lights up like every inch of her body, and he's finally getting through to her. Denji's grabbing some nearby puppet bodies and bathing in their blood. He comes back to the smoldering head of the Doll Devil and looks down at her. She's like, "You're not fearless, just too stupid to understand. I have thousands of puppets all over the world who could instantly become the assassin Santa Claus. With the Darkness Devil powers, I'll only get stronger. Every waking moment you'll be in fear, Denji." Denji's just like laughing at her like, yeah, okay, you do that. I don't care. At this point we can assume the Doll Devil is mostly formless, but the Master is the current host. I guess the Doll Devil is just a presence on the earth. And then Denji's head gets chopped off and kicked over, and Quan Chi walks over his corpse up to the Doll Devil, and she's like, alright, truce over. Time to work, Cosmo. It's your punishment for going sightseeing without us. Quan Chi turns to the Halloween fiend, who had wandered off earlier, which is why she said that. She wasn't really part of that last battle. With brains spilling out of her head, she squats and puts her arms back, almost like she's charging a Kamehameha. She goes, "Hollow! Hollow!" Suddenly, we're at the desk of the Cosmos Fiend, in front of a large, endless wall of books. I referred to her as the Halloween Fiend until now because she only spoke in the word Halloween, but now she's speaking in a very proper and articulated tone. Her pupils are these huge big red hearts and her hands are together, elbows on the desk, looking seriously at the master, the Doll Devil. She says to the Doll Devil, "The phenomenon that is about to occur is nothing more than the natural course of all lives. You are about to acquire a total understanding of everything in the universe." The Doll Devil says, My mind is connected to dolls all over the world. Your attacks will be like trying to dye the ocean red with a single drop of blood. You can't hurt me." Cosmos says, "You currently fancy yourself to have understood everything through the power of darkness. But everything as you understand it doesn't even fill one page of one book in this library. All of the contents of all of these books is about to flow into your mind, and at this time, you will truly come to understand everything." Doll says, "What will happen to me then?" Cosmos says, "Once you understand everything." We see the spine of a book written and illustrated by Cosmos. The title is Halloween, and the cover reads, "You can only think of Halloween until you die. You can only think of Halloween until you die." We see the Doll Devil falling on a background of thousands of books, at least 22 rows high and at least 150 books wide on every single shelf. Keep in mind the Darkness Devil, a primordial evil, with all the understanding of all of that time, only understood one page on a book of these thousands. And whatever was in that Halloween book was so impactful that it's all anyone could think of after seeing the universe. We cut to the Doll Devil's burning head. She's screaming, "Halloween! Halloween! 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 Halloween!" It's a more graphic burning scene than almost anything from Fire Punch. This scene is traumatic, and Quan Chi is watching the doll head burn. She turns around with her fiends, and Makima's walking up to her. Behind her, Kashibe and Yoshida put on blindfolds. Quan Chi raises her arms and says, "I surrender." And like her ponytail fiend said earlier in Chinese, Makima just says, "Aw, corpse is talking." Their heads fly from their bodies. The blood hits Kashibe and covers his face, and Makima watches proudly down as they die. Meanwhile, people from all over the world are frantically shouting Halloween. That's the end of Volume 8, and a good stopping point from this video. As Ponytail said back in Hell, the primal fear devils hold unknowable power, and Cosmos, I would say, is a primal fear, a fear of infinite space. It's funny that her fiend can't even handle the ability that she's been given, like her brain is spilling out of her head and even tied at one of the ends from all this knowledge. That's a really cool reveal for sure, and some really interesting character design. Overall, Volume 7 was just amazing. I loved all of it. That was some really insane stuff and some of the best that Chainsaw Man has to offer and some of the most surprising stuff. I'm really excited to see where the story goes next, and I'll catch you guys next time in the rest of these few volumes. Thank you for joining me. If you like this video, please consider subscribing. You can follow us on Twitter. You can like this video. You can catch us next time, or go back through some of my other manga videos. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.